Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and I'm here with another monthly reading wrap up, this time for the month of July. This was kind of a wild reading month for me. I read 15 books this month. Granted, some of them were like short story novella books, so it's not as much as it sounds like, but still, it was a lot. This was my last full month of summer break. And really my only full month of summer break because we went into June this year. So anyways, got a lot of reading done, obviously, so we're going to talk about the books. This month was kind of a mix of audiobooks and reading vlogs, and so most of the physical books that I have, in fact I think all of the physical books that I have already been talked about in a reading vlog at some point, but then I have a lot of audiobooks that I've finished that were not in reading vlogs necessary. So we're just gonna dive right into it. The first book that I finished, I actually started the month off filming My Husband Picks My Reads, so I'll link that video somewhere if you haven't already seen it, but several of the first books that I finished were actually from that video. The first of which was Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. This is a middle grade fantasy series about these two kids who get sent to live with their grandparents or stay with their grandparents for like a week while their parents go on a cruise. And so they go and there's some suspicious stuff going on. They don't really know these grandparents super well, but as they are on here, they start to find some maybe magical creatures living on their grandparents' estate, and it kind of goes from there. The younger brother is a mess. I don't even know how to describe him. He is such a rule breaker, and honestly I feel like a lot of this book is just him breaking every rule that he's given and then it causing problems that they have to go and fix. So I gave this one 3.75 Virgin on a 4-star. It was good. I don't know if it's my favorite YA or middle grade fantasy book that I've ever read, but it was a solid one. I think I would have really loved this had I read it as a kid. So that is Fablehaven. Definitely will be continuing the series at some point, not sure when. And then this is slightly out of order of how I read these books, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do all of the books from that video first, and then we'll jump back to the audiobooks that I was doing while finishing this video. But the next one that I read in that video was Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This one has become kind of an internet classic, Book Talk Booktube favorite book. This one is I would say adult sci-fi about this guy who lives on Mars. He is a digger, I guess would be the best word to put it, but basically they're miners. And so he goes, and this book is really hard to explain without spoiling things because a lot happens at the beginning that is like big reveals, but they're on Mars. They're basically trying to terraform Mars so that people can live there, and he's part of this like advanced crew that are being the miners in order to go and mine the substance that is needed to terraform Mars. And that is like not even close to where the book goes, but that's the setup that I can tell you without spoiling the book. There's a lot of other stuff that happens in this that has nothing to do with that. This book is odd because I feel like it starts by giving you like the overall, here's the general issues, the societal stuff, and then we get to a point where it narrows down into this really like closed, contained plot and scenario. And so I feel like it's a lot opposite. Like I feel like lots of times in series you'll have the first book that's like this really narrow picture of it, and then by the end of the first book it'll kind of expand the world to see the larger issues, and then that's where the rest of the series goes. This one's like the opposite, so I'm interested to see what the rest of the series looks like. I do want to continue the series for sure. I will say I felt like I didn't really connect with the main character a ton. He doesn't have much of a personality other than that he's just like angry and volatile and stubborn. So I don't know, he wasn't my favorite, but there were some side characters that I was really interested in that show up kind of midway through the book. There's one character named Goblin. He's my favorite. I'm very interested. My husband tells me that he becomes a little bit more of a thing in this series, so I'm ready for more Goblin content. The rest of the characters I don't really care so much about, but I gave this one 4 stars. Again, solid sci-fi book, and that's kind of all I have to say on it. I can see why some people love it so much. I just didn't connect with the characters super well, so hopefully I could see the rest of the series going really well for me. And then the next one in that video was The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. This one is a fantasy. I would say it's probably appropriate for all ages, maybe leans towards adults, but you definitely could read this with younger audiences and it would be fine. It is basically, you're following, all of the unicorns have disappeared except one, and you are following this final unicorn as she goes to try and hunt down all of the rest of the unicorns and figure out what happened to them. You're also following this magician and this random girl they pick up as they go about it. The most interesting part for me about this book was how it talks about like classic characters and like, what would be the word for it? Archetypes in fairy tales. Like you have your magician, you have your hero, you have like all these different like set characters. And it talks a lot about how like, oh no, this is your character, you need to be doing this thing. Like you're the hero, you need to go do this. I'm not the hero, I can't do that for you, kind of a thing, which I thought was very interesting. This book doesn't have a lot of world building. You're just kind of thrown into this world and you just kind of have to go with it. People just know things and you just accept that, which is probably my biggest thing that I was like, that I was unsure about. It reminds me a little bit of Narnia, just in like overall vibes. So again, would be a good one to read if you wanted to read a book as like a whole family or something. I gave this one 4 stars. It was good, but it's not one that I'm gonna be like raving about. And then the last book in that video was Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This one is a YA fantasy series based off of the legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. You have, how do I describe this? You have this main girl named Bree, and she gets accepted into an early college program at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And so she goes to this college, and one of her first nights there, she goes to this party and a demon starts attacking people, but nobody else seems to have any idea this is happening, and she's one of the only people that can see it. And so she gets thrown into this whole world of magic. You have these, again, it's all based off of like Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. My favorite character is the Merlin character. There's one person that is assigned to be the Merlin, and that character I really liked. He's like kind of your dark, grumpy, really angry, mean to everybody type of character, but he does get a bit more depth as you get further into the book, and I'm really interested in where his story arc's going to go. The thing that has me most interested is at the end of this book, there's like a little like short story excerpt thing where you get a couple of the chapters from his POV. So I'm very curious if we're gonna get a POV from the Merlin character in the next book. I'm really hoping we do. But I also recently found out that this is not a trilogy. I thought it was gonna be a trilogy. Apparently there's at least a 4th book coming. I don't know if that's gonna be the end of it or what the situation is, but I am going to continue this series for sure. I thought it was good. I gave it a 4.25. Again, I felt like, I don't know, it felt a little bit like just kind of your classic YA fantasy tropey stuff. At the end there were some plot twists that I didn't see coming and it became a lot more interesting, but I feel like the first little bit I was just kind of like, like, I don't know. It is a very bingeable book. I do feel like sometimes it got a little complicated with the magic system, and like some of it took me a second to figure out. You have a whole like trials situation, secret societies on campus. Yeah, that's kind of the general gist of it. It's a very bingeable book, but I don't know if it's like my all-time favorite. Once again, I just feel like I didn't love the main character so much, but I loved a lot of the side characters. Those were all the books that I read for My Husband Chooses My Books video. While doing this, I was also listening to several audiobooks that weren't part of that video, so I'm gonna go back and catch up on all of those that I finished. The first one, and I actually listened to most of this in June and then finished it in July, but this is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I think that's how you say her name. We're gonna go with Schaefer. And let me pick a side for that to go. But The Wishing Game is about this lady, who is working as basically like a TA, or like an assistant teacher in a kindergarten classroom. And she has this little boy that she met that she's been helping, that she really, really wants to adopt, but she isn't like in a good financial state to be able to adopt him. She can't get approved. And so she's trying to figure out how she can make this adoption happen. And with this little boy, they've kind of connected over this series of books by this really famous children's author called the Clock Island books. And so they're reading these books, and she has kind of like a history with these books from when she was a kid, which it does get into in the book. And then in addition to that, you're following the author of these books, who's kind of this super eccentric old man who lives on this island with the artist who does the illustrations for the covers. And the artist is quite a bit younger, but he's kind of taking care of this old man, and he has quit writing books. Like, he hasn't written a new book in the series for years. And then he comes back and all of a sudden, out of the blue, announces that he's written a final book for the series and he's having a competition, and whoever wins the competition gets the rights to the book. And so obviously our main female character gets involved in this competition, and you're kind of following it from there. This book surprised me how much I liked it. Narrator did great. I highly recommend the audiobook because the accent she does for the illustrator is good. I feel like she made the comedic timing work so well. Especially with this eccentric old man. He's just kind of like crazy and he's so funny, but I feel like, I don't know, I wonder how much I would have picked up on the humor reading it. I feel like I would have, but I feel like it just made it so much funnier because the narrator just like nailed the timing of the jokes. So yeah, this book made me laugh so much more than I thought I was going to. Like, I thought this was kind of going to be like a lit fic kind of a book, which like it is, but it was so funny. Me and my husband listened to this as we were driving back and forth between our house and my parents in Utah, and we were seriously laughing out loud so many times in this book. Like, it just got me. It was so funny. I love these characters so much. These characters are written so well. The little boy is great, the old man is great, the artist is great, like even the main girl. Like, I really loved these characters. And the plot is just good. It had such a good ending. This is just a book. If you want a book that's just gonna make you happy, it's funny, it's feel good. There are probably lots of trigger warnings that you should look up. Like, there's lots of talks about abuse in this book. So there are some heavy topics, but I feel like they're handled really well. And it's just such a heartwarming book by the end. And so highly recommend The Wishing Game. It deserves all the hype that it's gotten. I definitely need to look into the other books by this author. I gave this book a 4.75 stars. It was so close to being a perfect book for me. There were a few, it did take a minute to get into it, which is probably the main downfall. There were also a few, there's like kind of a lot of swearing, and there is quite a few like innuendo joke type things that get thrown in there, but other than that, a really solid book. I'd highly recommend The Wishing Game. And then again, we're already going out of order, so I'm just gonna lump these three together, but three of the books that I listened to this month are novellas, and they are all from the Penric and Desdemona series of novellas that is by Lois McMaster Bujold. This series is a whole series of short novellas that are set in a world that she has a larger fantasy series in. I can't remember what it's called, like the World of the Five Gods or something like that. And there's a whole larger series which I need to get into at some point with like actual novels in it. I have not read any of those, but I've been listening to the short stories. I found them because I was looking for books that were similar to like a T. Kingfisher type of sense of humor, and these books are really fun. The first book in the series is about Penric, who accidentally gets a demon inside of him, and it's very like a Venom-esque relationship. Like, him and the demon are still two separate entities, but they're just like in the same body. And so here, the first book just follows him as he deals with transitioning to figuring out how to live with the demon. It also means that he has to go and basically join like one of the orders of the gods and stuff, and so he like has this whole career change and stuff like that. The second one is called Penric and the Shaman. And this one, basically, he gets recruited to go and help this guy who is like an investigator. What's his actual title? A locator. That's his thing. Anyway, so he's trying to hunt down this guy who's been involved in some kind of weird ritual thing, and they need to go find him, and Penric gets lumped into going and helping. And so you're kind of following, there's all these like magical things, there's some interesting things going on with like animals and the shaman powers and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy, it's kind of funny. Everybody's a little bit uncomfortable around Penric because he's way younger than you typically are when you have a demon in you and stuff like that. It's just a fun, good time. So that was that one, and then the next two actually were kind of part of the same storyline, and that was, let me find them, Penric's Mission and then Mira's Last Dance. Those two kind of go together. Oh, I forgot to say my rating. I gave Penric and the Shaman 4 stars. Solid book. Penric's Mission, you follow him as he gets sent, I think this is quite a few years later. Like, he's had this demon for like 10 years or something like that at this point, so it's like been a minute. But he gets sent on basically a diplomatic mission to another country, and things go really, really wrong. And so you're following him as he tries to figure out what is going on. He gets like arrested as soon as he gets there. It does not go well. And so you're following him as he tries to sort out what went wrong, where he went wrong, and get himself out of the mess that he is now in. I gave that one 4.5 stars. It's just a funny, good time. Penric is just so awkward. He gets himself into the craziest situations. It's just fun. And then Mira's Last Dance actually picks up directly after that book, so it kind of splits the story in half. They've gotten to a certain point by the end of that one, and then it picks back up with the exact same characters, exact same story. This one has a little bit of weirder stuff going on. They end up basically hiding in a brothel, and so it gets into some weird situations, but nothing like super graphic or anything, so it's fine. I feel like overall this book definitely leans more adult. It has some like jokes and some little things that get put in there that I could definitely do without, but I feel like it keeps them to like a minimum. But I gave that one 4 stars. Again, it's just funny. Penric is just the most awkward person you will ever meet, and he just gets himself into the weirdest situations, and having the demon in him just makes it 10 times worse. And the demon gets him into bad situations. It's just like this whole thing. So highly recommend. I definitely will continue to listen to them. I think there's like 14 novellas in this whole series, so definitely will continue listening to all of these books. And then the next audiobook that I finished, again, I had listened to a lot of audiobooks this month. I don't know what was going on, but I listened to The Whispering Dark by Kelly Andrew. This is it's a YA fantasy, but it's very like, or maybe it's sci-fi. It's unclear. It kind of feels like it meshes sci-fi and fantasy, but basically you're living in this world where people can jump to mirror universes, but it feels almost more magical. And so you're following this girl who is she's deaf. She has a cochlear implant, and when she lost her hearing when she was little, she started to be able to hear things in like the dark. And she when she was really little, there was this boy that had drowned and died, and he came back, and she's the one who found him. And so there's like this whole thing going on with that, and then she gets accepted into this school on scholarship that basically studies the ability to jump between mirror universes. And as she gets there, she starts to find out about like the secret society. She runs into this boy that she has this past with. Things are crazy. Everybody has some kind of connection to like the occult. Her roommate is like seeing this boy in the vision of her mind. She thinks she's seen somebody get murdered. There's all sorts of crazy stuff going on. This school is a mess. This college is like a disaster. There's so many crazy things happening. And you're basically just following her as she tries to figure out what is going on, what is happening with her powers, does she have powers, can she jump between worlds, what's the secret society. There's a lot going on. I gave it 4.5 stars. I thought overall it was really well done. It was very good for fall read. It's kind of got this like spookier, darker thing. There's demons, there's all sorts of weird things happening, but very dark academia-esque type of a book. I will say, I feel like there were points where like the romance kind of sidetracked things. Definitely, like, I was caught into the book really quickly, and then I feel like you spend most of the book being like, what is going on? Like, I'm so confused. It doesn't explain stuff until you get pretty far into the book, and then you basically get all of the explanations dumped on you all at once. And so I think that was the one thing that I guess I have a complaint about, is I wish we got a little bit more answers as we went along, instead of it being all saved until the very end when we finally got explanations. The ending was interesting. And I'm very interested. This author has written another book called Your Blood, My Bones that sounds like a standalone, but I've heard Carrie from Carrie Can Read say that they actually interlink quite a bit. So I'm interested in that one. We'll see when I get to it if I decide to read that book. But overall, Whispering Dark was a well done book. Just be prepared to be confused for a majority of the book. And then the next 4 books that I finished this month were part of my Middle Eastern authors video that just barely went up before this one. So I'll just go in the order that I finished them in that video. The first one is The Land of Two Seas by Chandan Sengupta. This one is a thriller-ish that is set in Bahrain, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes. And so you're following, basically it is World War II, I want to say that this is set in. I could be so wrong. The back is very unhelpful on this, but we're in a war, and there are some interesting things going on with the island. There's an attack that happens that pretty much people come to realize could only have happened if insider information was being passed on to the enemy. And so they're trying to figure out who the mole is, essentially, as they're going through this book. The first 100 pages or so do not explain at all where we're going with the story. Like, it just feels so random. It's just an introduction of these kind of side characters that most of them come into play later. It doesn't really introduce the actual mystery until like 100 pages in. There is also one really random part where it jumps to like 2012, like way in the future, and that never comes into play. I don't know why that chapter was in there. Overall, my main critique of this book is I feel like it just needed an editor. It needed someone to come in and weed out the stuff that doesn't ever end up applying and just kind of like focus it down a little bit. But once we did get into the actual mystery, it was really good. And I do feel like there were some fun twists. It went a little bit faster once we got to that point. That being said, this is not going to be like the most intense thriller you've ever read in your life. It's definitely more of like a historical fiction thriller, based mostly off of true events. Honestly, not knowing the history of Bahrain very well, I have no idea what was real and what wasn't. So that was one downside of me not having like background before going into this book, is I don't know which parts were real and which ones weren't. But I did end up giving this one 3.5 stars. I think it was overall a good book, and I would read another one by this author. I just think it needed an editor. And then I read Ali and Nino by Kurban Said. Basically, you're following Ali, and he's in love with Nino, and he is trying to navigate their two different religions at a time when that is like really not super great. He's I can't actually remember what he's Muslim. Yeah, he's Muslim, she's Christian. They've fallen in love. They're trying to navigate how you make that work, right? Both of these cultures kind of have really strong opinions about things, and they're trying to figure out that. Basically, the first half of this book feels like their love story, and then the second half of the book feels like the love story between Ali and his home country. And he just becomes really, really obsessed with fighting for his country, which has now been occupied by several different people in the course of this book. It's following World War I from the point of view of Azerbaijan, and it's a very interesting one. It's written kind of like his journal, which was, I think, the biggest downfall of it, because you don't get that set up, or like you're not told that this is his journal until way in, so it just feels disjointed, where he'll like jump, he'll be explaining one thing and then all of a sudden he'll just like stop writing that and switch to something else, and we'll like summarize it. Like there's one point where they set up a whole war scene, and then we just next chapter summarize the war in like 2 minutes, and then we're like on. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I was interested to see where that was gonna go, but I guess not. It also ends very abruptly, so be prepared for that. It was fine. If you're interested, give it a try. I gave it 3 stars. It's not like the best book I've ever read, but it's not the worst either. So I don't know, I feel kind of neutral about this one. While I was reading those, I was also working my way through Open Skies by Niloufar Rahmani. This one is about Afghanistan's first female pilot. I believe in the book she qualifies this as she's the first fixed wing female pilot in Afghanistan, but this is basically just her story. It's really, really well written, short chapters, very clear and concise. I feel like this is a super accessible book, which I think is really great. Her story is crazy. She actually starts with the story of her dad and mom, and then kind of works her way up to her story. At the end of the book, you follow her ending up in the US seeking asylum, and then it kind of ends there. Obviously, she's still alive. This isn't like a super old book. Definitely don't expect this to be like something where you get her entire life story, because she's still alive. So very, very fascinating. If you want a very approachable memoir, would highly recommend. And I gave that one 5 stars. I don't remember if I said that or not. The last one for that video was Roundabout of Death by Faisal Kartash. This one is my one for Syria. You're following this like teacher who basically is just going about his life living in Syria while it is being attacked. He lives in Aleppo, and things are just getting bombed all the time. It's like you're just living under constant threat of you might be dead, who knows. Which the concept of that is fine. The book itself, I did not get. This one really made me feel like my brain was broken. Like I just could not process anything he was trying to tell me. I don't really understand exactly what went down. I get the basics of it, but I just really did not enjoy this book. I gave it 2 stars. Something about the writing just did not work for my brain. I felt like bits were missing. Like it just jumped from thing to thing, and I was just like, I don't understand where we're going with this. There were flashbacks that were not well set up as flashbacks at all, so I had no idea that it was supposed to be a flashback until we were way too far into it. So yeah, not my favorite, didn't hit for me. You could try it if you're into lit fic and like that's your bread and butter, you might enjoy this, but I personally struggle with this type of lit fic where there's not really a plot, you're just kind of following someone. Then I had one more audiobook that I finished this month. This one was super random. I was just scrolling through the like audiobooks that are available now on Libby, and I saw this one and it looked interesting, and so I listened to it. And that's how I ended up on 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. This one, you are following this guy who owns a bookstore that is specifically all about like mystery thrillers, right? Murder mystery bookstore. And one day an FBI agent shows up at his shop to talk to him because they think that somebody is using a list of books that he wrote to commit murders. And so basically he years ago had written this blog of 8 perfect murders in literature, and so murders that he thinks were the closest that anyone's gotten to a perfect murder in books, right? And so this FBI agent has linked several unsolved cases to that list and thinks that somebody is trying to go and basically replicate those in real life. And so they come to ask him to help try and solve this mystery, and it gets really complicated from there. The biggest thing that I think you need to know about this book is that it will spoil so many books for you. So many mystery books. Every book that is on his list of 8 perfect murders will get 100% spoiled for you. Plus there are like probably at least 5 others that they tell you the ending to. So I would highly recommend trying to find a list of all of the books that are referenced in this and read any of them you want to read first, because it will 100% spoil it. There were like 3 Agatha Christie's that he spoiled. Luckily I'd read all of them, but ABC Murders gets spoiled, and then there were none. Murder of Roger Ackroyd, those all get spoiled for you. Secret History, what else was there? There was several other like well-known mystery books that they're just 100% telling you the ending to. They're explaining every plot twist. So that's the biggest thing I think you need to know going into this book, is be prepared to have a lot of things spoiled. Overall though, I thought it was a pretty good thought out mystery. It was very interesting. We've got lots of secrets that come out over the course of the book. Maybe a bit of an unreliable narrator type of a thing. The narrator, and he tells you several times, like from the get-go, that he is keeping some stuff from you. Like he's writing this out and he is telling you that he's multiple times being like, you may have noticed that I left this out, or you may have noticed that this didn't exactly make sense. And you do eventually get the answers as to why he's been leaving things out and stuff like that. So overall it was good. It wasn't like my favorite mystery I've ever read, but it sucked me in. I got through it really quickly, which is saying something for an audiobook. I gave it 3.5 stars. There is a lot of really heavy topics. Again, a lot of like abuse, a lot of cheating, a lot of stuff like that. A lot of really, really messed up people in this book. So again, check your trigger warnings. There was some stuff where I was like, I don't know that I needed to get that into the content in order to understand what was happening, but I would listen to another book or read another book by this author. I thought it was well done. And then the last book I actually just finished yesterday. This one is Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer. This is book 2 in the Renegade series. I am reading it for a video coming up soon of continuing series. So read this one through Libby on the Kindle. This one is good. I gave it a 4-star. It picks up, I believe, pretty much right after the end of the first book, so no time gaps or anything. If you don't know the setup of this whole series, it's a YA sci-fi where basically you have like superheroes, and we're kind of post a civil war of sorts, post a revolution, and you've got these like heroes, the renegades, that are in control now, and then you have your villains who are called the anarchists, I think, that are kind of in hiding, and you're following one of the main anarchist girls that decides to go and become a renegade in order to like infiltrate, figure out their secrets, that kind of thing. Book 2, you're really just continuing from where book 1 is. I think the biggest thing that frustrated me about this book is obviously everybody has a lot of secrets. You have this person who infiltrated and you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, kind of a thing, where you're just like, at some point they're gonna have to figure out that she is not who she says she is, right? Like, you know that's coming from the get-go. At some point her identity is going to get revealed. Doesn't happen in the second book either. So I guess that's gonna be a third book thing. I'll be honest, I'm feeling a little frustrated about it. I feel like it's hindering some forward movement in the plot because we're still having to like tiptoe around all these secrets. So I wish we would just get to the point, rip the band-aid off, where everybody knows and we can just move forward. I have a feeling book 3 is going to get very messy because it's got to come out at some point. Like, they've got to at some point figure that out. But there is some crazy stuff that happens at the end of this book. Overall, it was good. They're really bingeable, easy to read books. And I will be finishing the series hopefully soon as my Libby hold comes in for the third book. That is all of the books that I read in July. Again, it was kind of a lot. I got through a lot of books this month. Usually at the end of these videos, I talk through my TBR for the upcoming month. I don't know that I have a super set TBR at the moment for August, but I'll talk just briefly, I guess, about it. I have started Words of Radiance. This has been on my TBR for the last couple months and I keep not getting around to it. It's happening in August. I've started it. We're doing it. So I'm going to be reading this one. This one's obviously chunky. Because I'm going back to work this month, I don't know how much I'm gonna get through. We'll just see how that transition goes. I also started on audiobook. I'm a little ways into I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons by Peter S. Beagle, same person as The Last Unicorn. So I will be listening to that one because that one I've already started. So those are the two that I've already started. I do have the next Penric and Desdemona book on hold, so I will be getting to that one soon too. I'm sure I'll continue that. As far as holds that may come through, I don't know. Maybe I'll get the next Renegades book. It's called Supernova. It's not estimating that I'll get it this month, but sometimes they come through earlier than they say they're going to. But really that's probably the only one that's actually going to come through. The only other one that may come through early is The Unmaking of June Farrow. I've had that one on hold for quite a while now. So we'll just kind of see when that one comes through, but really I'm just kind of letting myself mood read for a month. I've got videos planned, things that I'm trying to do. I am potentially going to try and get my free trial of Kindle Unlimited and get through a lot of Kindle Unlimited books in the next month. That's the plan. So watch out for videos like that coming soon, but that's kind of my reading plans coming up. Again, I'm just kind of letting myself mood read. I don't have necessarily like a specific TBR for August. I'll probably be back to doing that in September. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. I feel like I've talked for quite a while. I had a lot of books to get through. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.